I've been told about this monument that Kevin's put up here, and we will be unveiling it. It talks about the many waves of farming families and farming settlement that's been happening over this time. And I've listened to the names that have been read out here today, and it's great that Kevin's got a lot of those people represented for the families. But in my research, I looked at some of the names like the Hopes, the Haymans, the Hearns, and their workers. And then later the land was more closely settled by families such as the Keeleys, the Reeders, the Burns, I should say, the Ryans, the Dixons, Fosters, McDonalds. We've got the Warners, the Craninges. My family have known these people a long time, the Cassidys and McDougals, the Hefmans, of all names that rang a bell for me when they were read out by Kevin here before. But also this monument recognises, as we all know, the Chinese travellers that made their way through this area many years ago. And in fact, in the research that I did, the early stonemasonry of the area was the construction of the first Edenhope Hotel, from which I understand the foundation stone of this memorial has been made. My research, and I've got to read a bit of this, doesn't reveal much about the colourful history of the Edenhope pub. So I've had to do a little bit of local research. The best I could find out, it was dubiously had the title of the port capital of Australia. Now I thought to myself, that's a long way away from the port, but I did a bit more research. It was about the 1900s when the Red Gum loggers were here and a few others. It had the greatest amount of port that was consumed by any per head of people of any town in Australia. So Edenhope's got something else to be famous for, consuming the most amount of port per head of people in any town in Australia. So at that stage it was known as a port capital of Australia. And as Kevin's got here around the back there, he's got the water pump. This recognises the urban residents who have settled here. As we know, the Edenhope township was gazetted on the 8th of January 1862. I haven't got all these pages. But the planned development of the area resulted in the settlement pressure from the English, the Scottish and the Irish shepherds to the stations in this area. The townspeople, as I said, have come through in waves. First to support the agricultural settlers, and I often say whether I'm here, in Melbourne or anywhere, that my electorate revolves around agriculture for our economic and employment fortunes, and that hasn't changed for many years. So the first support was given to the agricultural settlers as farm and timber workers, and later to provide goods and services to the community as the township of Edenhope grew. The flagpole is represented by the patriotism of the Queen and country. It is fitting that this monument be erected at the courthouse. Now this is another story. The courthouse was dutifully recorded the misdemeanours of people who have settled here. I'm sure none of them would have been to the courthouse here. Whether it be a sailor who was charged for being idle and disorderly. Imagine that crime being that today. To the death or mediation of co-workers and the neighbours. But the most exciting case that I've researched here today was probably in the 1930s, when all the locals turned out and filled the court for the trial of Thomas Herring. Is any of the family relations here, the Herring families here? I'm talking about him, I'm not upsetting him. Who was charged with the theft of 24 bottles of Old Port whisky. The accused had drunk 2 bottles of the whisky when apprehended and admitted carrying the case from the town of Edenhope to the racecourse. And we all know that's no mean feat to do that. Before planting the bottles in a wooden drain and breaking up the case and disposing of it in long grass. My information and the research I did was that the Herring, he pleaded guilty, and he said his wife and 4 children, he had to support them. And the shearing season had not started, so he needed some money for his liquid refreshment. But after much deliberation, which many have been, I'm sure, much assistance from the audience, Herring was sentenced to 3 months jail. And I've been to the old, when we opened the police station here, I saw the old jail. And he was prohibited from drinking from then on. I'm not sure that would have been done properly. But anyway, look, I want to just finish off by saying the monument here, it's a fantastic job, well done. It's for all the people of Edenhope, all of us. And for the first for the first Aboriginal inhabitants, to the explorer William Wallace, as we know the lake was named after, to the first settlers, but to the many waves of farm and timber workers, the Chinese travellers, the first modern farmers, to the townskeepers, the service providers, to the soldier settlers, and the people like we have here today. It is a real pleasure for myself to be here as your local state member to really unveil this great monument and this plaque here to recognise the many people who have come through Edenhope and the many people now that make it their home.